The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to this 26th webinar on the Secret Doctrine. This and all subsequent sessions will be available on makara.us under the subheading Moria Federation Webinars. You see it circled up there in the upper right. Okay, as usual, we'll start by checking in on HPB and Colonel Olcott, her intrepid partner. This month we find them at a local temple, still in the southern town of Tirunelveli, India. It's right in the southern, hottest part of India. So this comes in 2 slides, and so choose 2 readers, if you would.
Okay, let's start off with Scott and Carrie, please. So let me get down there to Scott. There you go. And then we'll do Carrie. Scott, are you there? All right, let's try Carrie first and then Scott.
Yeah, you may have stepped away for a sec.
Shall I start?
Yes, please.
Okay. On the next day occurred the ever-to-be-remembered incident of the planting of a coconut within the temple compound by our Buddhist delegation as an act of religious amity and tolerance. The Nelyapa Pagoda, as it is called, is a very ancient stone structure with the usual pyramidal gopurams carved to the summit with figures in high relief, and the covered stone ambulatories encircling the 4 sides. It was crowded to suffocation by a curious multitude when our procession reached there. Our order of formation was as follows. The frisky Bob, wearing his Sinhalese comb and his hair in a big knot, appeared in the lead, carrying on his head his brass jar of water with a ripe coconut resting on a bed of betel leaves on top. Then the temple band of musicians playing their loudest at our tympanums. Then myself, followed by the 3 Sinhalese Buddhists. Then a large body of notables and some 1,500 people bringing up the rear. We entered the temple with flags flying and music playing amid a tumult of applause. Bob kept steadily on, and soon his shining jar seemed floating on a dark sea of humanity as the crowd wedged in between him and ourselves. At last we struggled onto the platform, prepared for us, and mounted it. 5,000 people began shouting at once. Just a few yards back of us in the open air, a hole had been dug for the nut, and it was covered over with an ornamental canopy.
Okay, Carrie, would you just keep reading? It's a short paragraph.
I held up my hand as a signal for silence, but as at least 50 or 100 strong-lunged people began shouting to the rest to keep silence, it may be imagined what luck a speaker would have. When these shouters lost their voices, as many more took up the cries, and so it went on and on until I thought I should have to give my address in pantomime. Whereupon, comically enough, there came back to my memory the recollection of the fairy-like pantomimes of the Ravel family, which I had seen in boyhood. I tried to speak in the hope that when they saw my lips move and my body swaying, the crowd would give me a chance. But my bad throat compelled me to stop very soon. Then, when the case seemed hopeless, a light-skinned, intellectually faced Brahmin, naked to the waist, arose in his place, towering above the squatting multitude, and raising both arms full length above his head, pronounced the sacred salutation, Hari, Hari, Mahadeva. The clear resonant sounds rolled far and wide, and silence fell upon the chattering multitude. I could even hear the sparrows twitter and the crows cawing outside.
Nicely read, Carrie. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Last month, we finished working through HPB's commentary on verse 7, one of the most major verses so far. So let's now revisit the verse itself. Could we get a reader just for the verse?
Lynn, can you read that for us, please?
Yes. 7. Behold, O Lanu, the radiant child of the two, the unparalleled refulgent glory, bright space, sun of dark space, which emerges from the depths of the great dark waters. It is Oeahu, the younger, the ... He shines forth as the sun. He is the blazing divine dragon of wisdom. The one is 4, and 4 takes to itself 3. And the union produces the Sapta, in whom are the 7, which become the Tridasa, or the whole hosts and the multitudes. Behold him lifting the veil and unfurling it from east to west. He shuts out the above and leaves the below to be seen as the great illusion. He marks the places for the shining ones and turns the upper into a shoreless sea of fire and one manifested into the great waters.
Okay, thanks, Lynn. Okay, from the top, actually, before we get into this analysis, I just wanted to remark on the sense of spiritual glory that that this verse proclaims, right? You really feel this unparalleled, refulgent glory of this astonishing presence, of bright space, Oeahu the younger. During this analysis, please feel free to raise your hand at any time. Lanu is defined in the Theosophical Glossary as, quote, an accepted chela. The use of the term here and throughout the old commentary also suggests that the level of discipleship that this Lanu represents must certainly have his Ajna center opened. So the next phrase is the radiant child of the two. To find out who the two are in this radiant child of the two, we need only look to the end of the previous verse, fire and water, father and mother. However, this is only an apparent duality, for Oeahu, we're told, is still one. Bright space emerges from the primordial feminine principle, the slumbering waters of life of verse 2, as the eventual result of Oeahu the elder, who is dark space in this verse, breathing over chaos, the great dark waters, or the slumbering waters of life. They're all the same idea representing the feminine principle. The fact that these stanzas chronicle a manvantara of our solar system indicates that this Oeahu the younger is most likely the central spiritual sun. The 3 asterisks after Oeahu the younger's name probably represent a secret word or phrase that describes a state of being beyond the capacity of anyone reading this verse to understand. Dragons represent cosmic wisdom as well as cyclic time. We read about them in the Theosophical Glossary segment on serpents. At first glance, the 4 and 3 in this statement seem to be reversed until we remember that the first purpose of the Logos, demonstrated through the will to be, is to manifest. For the Pythagoreans, creation was symbolized by the number 4. for it was the base number of the tetractys. In this light, the 1 is 4, could be interpreted as the Logos is one with his creation. On all planes of existence, this creation is essentially etheric, which is fourfold. Therefore, and 4 takes to itself 3 can be read as extending logoic expression down into the 3 lower subplanes of each plane, including the cosmic physical plane. So instead of 3 representing the Trinity, here it would represent the 3 that is an extension downward of the 4 etheric. Last month we looked at the Tridasha, the 33. They are the Adityas, Vasus, Rudras, and Asvins that together condition creation and carry out the purpose of the Logos. These 4 aspects of the 1 are another way in which, quote, the 4, 1 is 4. 4 plus 3 create the Sapta, or 7 planes and subplanes, thus fulfilling one purpose of the Manvantara. The division described in the next statement, behold him lifting the veil and unfurling it from east to west. He shuts out the above and leaves the below to be seen as the great illusion. This statement can be applied to both cosmic and human levels of consciousness. For instance, by building the Antakarana, we can traverse the lowest of these divisions. The east, direction of the rising sun, is ever seen as the source of spirit. With each successive initiation, we further penetrate into, quote, the above. That said, I think the division described here is referencing a state of being beyond time and space altogether. In fact, if we consider the dividing veil in this light, in light of this statement, he marks the places for the shining ones and turns the upper into a shoreless sea of fire, and the one manifests into the great waters. It seems to me we would have to move the dividing line up to this place, between the Adis subplane above, called the Sea of Fire, and the 6 subplanes below that. Here, fire stands for deity, water for the substantive worlds, as straight primary duality, which is described in verse 6, the body of fire and water, or father and mother. Okay, so it's a little pocketbook analysis. Any final thoughts on verse 7 before we move on? We spent all last session on this, looking at her commentary on this. This verse marks the emergence of the third Logos. Deity is creator, manifesting through the will to be. From his navel, which represents the source of being, Vishnu sends forth Brahma, or Oyaohu the Younger, the unparalleled refulgent glory, to create and oversee the Manvantara until the day be with us. And that's true whether you're looking at the entire universal creation or just our solar system. Okay. Verse 7 also marks a dividing point in the stanzas, for all that came before verse 7 represents some phase of noumenal deity, and all that comes after belongs to the manifested, though not yet material realm. So, okay, on to verse 8, which reads, where was the germ, and where was now darkness? Where is the spirit of the flame that burns in thy lamp, O Lanu? The germ is that, and that is light, the white, brilliant sun of the dark, hidden Father. So let's start with HPB's commentary, and we could get a reader for this section.
Karen, can you read that for us, please?
Sure.
Just the part in black.
Okay. The answer to the first question suggested by the second, which is the reply of the teacher to the pupil, contains in a single phrase one of the most essential truths of occult philosophy. It indicates the existence of things imperceptible to our physical senses, which are of far greater importance, more real and more permanent than those that appeal to these senses themselves. Before the Lanu can hope to understand the transcendentally metaphysical problem contained in the first question, he must be able to answer the second, while the very answer he gives to the second will furnish him with the clue to the correct reply to the first. In the Sanskrit commentary on this stanza, the term used for the concealed and the unrevealed principle are many. In the earliest,
Manuscript.
manuscript of Indian literature, this unveiled abstract deity has no name. It is called generally that, tad in Sanskrit, and means all that is, was, and will be, or that can be so received by the human mind.
So any thoughts or questions about this? So just now on this reading, sometimes you just miss stuff, no matter, and I've read this many times. She just in passing describes the Sanskrit commentary on this stanza of Dzyan, suggesting that, this all exists not just in Sinzar, which is what we assume, what's described in the introduction to the Secret Doctrine, but also, in Sanskrit with Sanskrit commentaries. It's interesting because we can assume that it's not her commentary, meaning that there is further Sanskrit printed commentary somewhere. It's fascinating. I hadn't really noticed that before. Okay, so any thoughts or questions about this commentary? We have apparent answers to where was the germ and where was now darkness in the verses themselves. Where was the germ was answered way back in verse 2. It dwelleth in darkness. The second question, where was now darkness, was answered in verse 6. Darkness disappeared in its own essence, the body of fire and water, or father and mother. Disappeared as here used means withdrew, but it might be more correct to say that that as the evolutionary arc, the movement into the form aspect reached the stage of the manifestation of Oeaohu the Younger, who personifies the germ that we're talking about. Darkness and the abstract germ became concealed, the hidden essence of all manifestation, as opposed to the normal usage of the word disappeared, as though it was gone. And this essence of manifestation represented by the point in the circle, which stands at the center of every atom of life. And this system of causality and manifestation truly is, quote, one of the most essential truths of occult philosophy. Back on page 57 of the SD, HPB says, but the term point must not be understood as applying to any particular point in space, for a germ exists in the center of every atom, and these collectively form the germ, or rather, as no atom can be made visible to our physical eye, the collectivity of these, if the term can be applied to something which is boundless and infinite, forms the noumenon of eternal and indestructible matter. That noumenon is the seed logos, Oeaohu the Younger. It's interesting. He disappeared into what you might call immanent deity, that is the very essence of every particle of substance and atom of consciousness or unit of consciousness. But what does HPB mean by this provocative statement? Before the Lanu can hope to understand the transcendentally metaphysical problem contained in the first question, he must be able to answer the second, while the very answer he gives to the second will furnish him with the clue to the correct reply to the first. So, the answer to where was darkness will give us to the clue, she tells us, to where was the germ. First, we have to concede that the question, where was the germ, is a, quote, transcendentally metaphysical problem, because just saying that it lies in darkness doesn't really answer the question. All we can do is try to get better acquainted with the terms darkness and germ and the relationship between the two. In the commentary on verse 10, which is just around the corner, we're told, can we get a reader for this?
Sure. Let's go to Michael S., please.
In the Mandukya Upanishad, it is written, as a spider throws out and retracts its web, as herbs spring up in the ground, so is the universe derived from the undecaying one. Brahma, as the germ of unknown darkness, is the material from which all evolves and develops, as the web from the spider, as foam from the water, etc. This is only graphic and true if Brahma, the creator, is, as a term, derived from the root bre, or increase or expand. Brahma expands and becomes the universe woven out of his own substance.
So, the germ of unknown darkness is the material from which all evolves and develops. Even more succinctly, the universe is derived from the undecaying one, the latter being, of course, the unknown darkness. You can see that language just skirts the issue. You know, you can never really put your finger on, you know, where is now darkness, because the entire realms of beingness that we're speaking of is beyond language, truly beyond any way to describe these conditions, these states of, see, even saying states of consciousness isn't accurate because this far transcends the very idea of consciousness. But that's not going to stop us. Okay, the same idea is here expressed in another way. Ananta, the couch of Vishnu, is an allegorical abstraction symbolizing infinite time and space, which contains the germ and periodically throws off the efflorescence of this germ, the manifested universe. But to find the root of this relationship, we need to go back to the last two verses of stanza 2. 1, darkness alone was father, mother, Svabhavat, and Svabhavat was in darkness. And 2, these two are the germ, and the germ is one. The universe was still concealed in the divine thought and the divine bosom. These two verses unified darkness, father, mother, and the germ, all under the name Svabhavat. But, you know, are we really any closer? Well, we have, you know, some awareness of the nomenclature. At these highest, most abstract levels, that's the best we can hope to do until, you know, you, through meditation, gain some experience of the inner abstract. That's actually the closest possible understanding of these qualities that we're discussing. So any thoughts, any final thoughts on the transcendentally metaphysical problem posed by these two to my mind, unanswerable questions. Where was the germ, and where was now darkness? You can maybe throw that out at Christmas dinner, right? If that you get a lapse in the discussion, you can put that one out, see what you get. Okay, onward. Can we get a reader for this next paragraph? This is fascinating. It introduces the idea of the great swan Kalihamsa.
Please go ahead, Scott.
Okay. Among such appellations, given of course only in esoteric philosophy, as the unfathomable darkness, the whirlwind, etc., it is also called the it of the Kalahamsa, the Kalahamsa, and even the Kali Hamsa, black swan. Here the M and the N are convertible, and both sound like the nasal French on or om, or again N or M, ennui, embarrass, etc. As in the Hebrew Bible, many a mysterious sacred name in Sanskrit conveys to the profane ear no more than some ordinary and often vulgar word, because it is concealed anagrammatically or otherwise. This word Hansa, or esoterically Hamsa, is just such a case. Hamsa is equal to Ahamsa, 3 words meaning I am he in English. While divided into still another way, it will read Soham, he is I. Soham being equal to Sa, he, and Aham, I, or I am he. In this alone is contained the universal mystery, the doctrine of the identity of man's essence with God essence, for he who understands the language of wisdom. Hence the glyph of and the allegory about Kalihamsa or Hamsa, and the name given to Brahman, neuter, later on to the male Brahma or Hansa Vahana, he who uses the Hansa as his vehicle. The same word may be read Kalahamsa or I am I in the eternity of time, answering to the biblical, or rather Zoroastrian, I am that I am. The same doctrine is found in the Kabbalah, as witnessed the following extract from the unpublished manuscript by Mr. S. Lytle, MacGregor Mathers, the learned Kabbalist.
So we'll get to Mather's quote in a minute. So thoughts or questions about this provocative paragraph? The phrase, many a mysterious sacred name in Sanskrit conveys to the profane ear no more than some ordinary and often vulgar word, because it is concealed anagrammatically or otherwise, references the many blinds in sacred literature, often hiding in plain sight through rearrangement of the letters, which is what anagrammatic means, to rearrange the letters. Right. So blinds can be created by having all the information there, but for one who has some access to their intuition, through rearrangement, the truth can be revealed. The word Kalahamsa, we discover, is such a blind, containing within it, probably many more than 3 iterations of identification with God essence. She describes 3. If we put a therefore between each of these, it also seems to follow a logical sequence. I am he, therefore he is I, or am I. Therefore, I am I. Interestingly, she said to this particular iteration, I am I, she said, in infinity, I am I, right? Because at that point, the vehicle has been reabsorbed. Therefore, the Leo keywords, I am that I am. all in the word Kalahamsa. In the definition of Hansa Vahana, he who uses the Hansa as his vehicle, we get a sense of the relationship between these pairs. I, the apparently separated incarnated I, which is the vehicle of he. Let's take a look at the Theosophical Glossary on Kalahamsa. Can we get a reader for this?
Yes.
This actually includes a quote that we're going to be coming to in just a moment, but never hurts to say things twice.
Martha G., can you read that for us, please?
Yes. Kalahansa, or Kalahamsa in Sanskrit, the swan in eternity. In the pre-cosmogonical aspect, Kalahansa becomes Brahman or Brahma, darkness or the unknowable. And the second, the swan in time and space, when by analogy, Kalahansa becomes Brahma, masculine. Rather than Brahma being the Hansa Vahana, the one using the swan as vehicle, it is Brahma who is Kalahansa, while Purusha, the emanation from Brahma, as one of its aspects as a creative power, is the Hansa Vahana or swan carrier. The swan or goose, Hansa, is the symbol of that male or temporary deity, as he, the emanation of the primordial ray, is made to serve as the Vahan or vehicle for that divine ray, which otherwise could not manifest itself in the universe, being antiphrastically itself, an emanation of darkness, for our human intellect at any rate.
Okay, hold on just a second. Antiphrastically means the use of a word in a sense opposite to its normal one. It's often used in sarcasm, but here meaning that it would be antiphrastic to say that Kalahamsa emanates from darkness when it is itself that darkness.
Thank you.
Yeah, go ahead with the last.
You know, what's coming to mind, are we talking about the life before the rays?
Yes.
Okay.
Indeed. With Oyaohu the Younger, we had the composite being who then demonstrates its consciousness through its own sevenfold aspect. But that's the very next further development.
So that in some ways this flow back on itself, all these different layers of the words are the emanations of an energy which will in some ways refine itself into something knowable.
Yeah,
Okay.
if you look up there at the end of the first paragraph, which says it's Brahma who is Kalahansa, while Purusha, the emanation from Brahma, it becomes the Hansa Vahana. And it exoterically, the Kalahansa as the swan is often considered to carry Brahma, but in fact it is Brahma who then manifests this swan carrier from its own self.
Wow. Thank you.
Yeah.
The first cause had no name in the beginnings. Later it was pictured in the fancy of the thinkers as an ever invisible, mysterious bird that dropped an egg into chaos, which egg becomes the universe. Hence Brahm was called Kalahansa, the swan in space and time. He became the swan of eternity, who lays at the beginning of each Mahamanvantara a golden egg. It typifies the great circle, or O, itself, a symbol for the universe and its spherical bodies. In Secret Doctrine, first chapter. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Martha. So, eventually we'll develop the habit to immediately translates such terms as egg, right, into that primordial occurrence of Purusha. That is to say, the most non-corporeal first instance of the creative aspect, right? And this is often used, the egg, for this. You could also look at it as a ring past knot of the influence of this particular substantive realm, right? Okay, so to clarify this point, the Theosophical Glossary makes a distinction between the pre-cosmic unknowable Kalahamsa and Hansa Vahana, the vehicle of Brahma. Yeah, did I hear somebody?
Oh, sorry. Antonella has her hand up.
Yeah, fine.
Yeah, hi. I was thinking, as always, from an astrological point of view. We have in the manifested universe, or at least in the firmament, this swan, which is a great cross, which by decay is associated to the bird of the soul, the second aspect, while the eagle is the first aspect is the bird of spirit. So I was wondering if the fact that the swan, which also Blavatsky says that Deneb, which is the main star of the swan, is associated to the letter M or the Aum. Yeah. So, and the fact that these two birds are along the Milky Way. So if our egg, our solar system as an egg, could come from that river, which is galactic, and these two birds are the name that the initiates gave in ancient times to the sources of these two birds, which really fly in this galactic river, which is the Milky Way. And so it's just a suggestion, but we know that analogically the galactic plane is higher than the solar ecliptic plane of the solar system. So it could be also a revelatory point, the fact that we have these two birds in the constellations.
Yeah, that's a fascinating study. I'd like to look more into, that constellation and its meaning. The Kalahamsa in a place of more source orientation is representative also of that feminine principle. So you could say it's more it's primary even to the eagle in this sense, in that from the depth of the great waters which the Kalahamsa floats upon, you have all creation, including that constellation. Right, so it's the most primordial form of the aquatic bird, right? Which takes many forms, right? And the key to it, it's interesting that she played with this idea of the N and the M, because the N is, as I understand it, is inherently masculine and the M is feminine. And so in the switching of those two letters, you have a change in the meaning. M, 13th letter, always associated with the feminine, therefore with the original form substance, right, with divine feminine.
It's interesting because in studying book about Sanskrit, I found this comparison. The Na are the undifferentiated waters, while the Ma, which is the source of mother or measure, everything with this M of mom. It's the space with the relationship, means relationship, space as a relationship, as with not a limit, but not a boundary, but a measure, a relationship. While Na is undifferentiated waters. Yeah.
So yeah, the Ma would be, you know, it's like the absolute within manifestation, which is like, it's called Narayana, who breathes upon the undifferentiated waters of space. But then you have Father Mother, and in that, I think that would be that relationship of Kalahamsa, where the N, and I don't know if, you know, in tradition, Kalahamsa with an N is used to describe that first state that is equivalent to the Narayana of the unknown darkness, right?
Yeah,
probably. I don't know.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. Anyway, the N has two curves and the M has three curves. So could be also a hint. Beautiful. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. And then, you know, the next stage is the Hansa Vahana, right? And most people, you know, even devout Hindus, would, you know, where the tradition comes from, and also, you know, Sanskrit is, that's considered, the Hansa Vahana is considered the Kalahamsa, right? But in fact, in this more esoteric understanding that's being brought forward here, we see the divisional layers, you know, the vehicle, which is Oyaohu the younger of verse 7, right? That is the Hansa Vahana. You know, that's what's being carried forth. You know, to go back here, I'm going to have to go back a few. Oh yeah, I always get in trouble when I do this. Oh, I didn't know it was this far back. Oh, I want to get back to, there it is. Yeah, so that Oyaohu the younger is that being floating in space above the waters there, right? And then so you could say that that's the Vahana, that's the Hansa Vahana, and that would then be appropriate, Hansa, Hansa Vahana, right? So now let me get back.
And it's interesting also that I am, which is the principle of ahem, has an M, like the identification needs this M. Aham.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a definite linking, you know, just in the vibratory quality of M, you can see how it's like form oriented. It's like what takes one towards the vehicle aspect. Okay, I think we're back. Yeah, here we go. Okay. I shouldn't do that kind of thing, but you know, I wanted to make that clear. Okay, so anything else about this? This is incredible clarification of, you know, this idea. So let's take a look at the quote from MacGregor Mathers, the eminent Kabbalists. Could we get a reader for this paragraph?
Antonella,
I'm sorry, don't worry about the symbols because they're always followed by the actual name.
Okay. The three pronouns hoa, ata, ani, he, tou, I, are used to symbolize the ideas of macroprosopus and microprosopus in the Hebrew Kabbalah. Hoa, he, or he, probably is said, is applied to the hidden and concealed macroprosopus. Ata, thou, to microprosopus, and ani, I, to the latter, when he is represented as speaking. It is to be noted that each of these names consists of 3 letters, of which the letter Aleph, A, forms the conclusion of the first word Hoa, and the commencement of Ata and Ani, as if it were the connecting link between them. Aleph is the symbol of the unity, and consequently of the unvarying idea of the divine operating through all these. But behind the Aleph in the name Hoa are the letters Tau and Pi, the symbols of the numbers 6 and 5, the male and the female, the hexagram and the pentagram. And the numbers of these 3 words, Hoa, Ata, and Ani, are 12, 406, and 61, which are reduced to the key numbers of 3, 10, and 7 by the Kabbalah of the 9 chambers, which is a form of the exegetical rule of Temura.
Okay, everybody get all that? Now, there's going to be a test later. Thoughts or questions? This passage is not as difficult as it might at first seem. There's a couple of ways of simplifying it, which we'll do. The 2 terms, macro and microprosopus, being vast countenance and small countenance, respectively. Mathers tells us here that the pronoun hoa, or he, is used in regards to that, tad, right, or tad, which stands beyond time and space, the vast countenance. And the term ata, or thou, is used when considering the manifested universe, or small countenance. These terms, macro and microprosopus, are also used in connection with a Kabbalistic tree of life. In this system, the highest Sephiroth, Kether, is the macroprosopus, whereas the manifested lower 9 collectively make up the microprosopus. This sentence, it is to be noted, where's it? I lost my place, hang on. It's to be noted that each of these names consists of 3 letters, of which the alpha, or aleph, forms the conclusion of the first word hoa, and the commencement of ata and ani, as if it were the connecting link between them. This sentence reveals the esoteric nature of the Greek alphabet. Unity, represented by aleph, is both the last letter in hoa and the first letter in ata, as well as hani, thus linking the infinite to the realm of the finite in unbroken continuity. This is unity as the, quote, unvarying idea of the divine operating through all. Any thoughts or questions? Next, but behind the alpha in the name Hoa are the 3 letters Tau and Pi, the symbol of the numbers 6 and 5, the male and female, the hexagram and the pentagram, suggesting that Hoa, the unmanifest absolute as alpha, has hidden within it both the male and female potencies, father and mother. Numerologically, 5 and 6, which add to 11, which reduces to 2, thus representing the potential duality in unity. And I'm also seeing right now that the O and A are the alpha omega as the sum total, right? That's what's represented here. Finally, And the numbers of these three words, Hoa, Ata, and Ani, are 12, 406, and 61, which reduce to the key numbers of 3, 10, and 7 by the Kabbalah of the 9 chambers, which is a form of the exegetical rule of Tumura. Okay, that's the real clincher sentence, isn't it? These are simple numerological reductions. 12 becomes 1 plus 2, which equals 3. 406 becomes 4 plus 0 plus 6, which equals 10. And 61 becomes 6 plus 1, which equals 7. These are significant numbers in the Kabbalah of the 9 chambers, right, which are the lower 9, which takes us back to the manifested Sephirah of the Tree of Life. 10 is the all, both unmanifest and manifest, which becomes 3, the Trinity, and 7, the manifest Sephirah. A different level of manifest. Here you have the Trinity being the deity in expression, and the 7 being that expression. Okay. Okay, where was I? Oh yeah, Tumura. Tumura is an anagrammatical, which means rearrangement of letters, method used by Kabbalists in the study of the Kabbalah. Exegetical comes from exegesis, which in this case probably means just simply an in-depth or an esoteric study. So any final thoughts on or questions on this quote?
Yes.
Mathers. Yeah.
Ishtar says, thank you, very interesting. I understand the swan egg as egg from swan, the seed of the previous Mahamanvantara, and at the dissolution will hold everything in darkness, creating a new Brahma period, where a new egg with the germ of all past Mahamanvantara as potentials is the new germ?
That's actually very nicely said. It's yes. All is held in situ in a systemic pralaya, as such as this solar system enters, and indeed, when it reemerges, that in that new egg, that new virgin egg, is held all the development of the past. Otherwise, it would just be a continuously repetitive cycle. Now, there's something else occurs in what might be called a cosmic pralaya, where all manifestation in all systems comes to an end, in which case you have absolute and complete homogeneity and what's called in theosophy, the day be with us. And then the new Manvantara is an entirely new universe. And as to whether anything, I remember having this discussion with Michael Robbins, and I think it was his assertion that there can be nothing held in situ in that situation, that it must truly all start anew. So that's a a very different scenario than a solar pralaya. And thank you for that. Okay, so any other thoughts on this quote from Mathers? You thought Secret Doctrine was difficult, right? Well, how about reading Mathers? Yeah, he gets pretty hairy at times, but if you take your time, often you can dissect his metaphors and his ideas, and they're usually quite rich. Okay, let's continue with HPB's commentary. This will seem almost conversational by comparison. Can we get a reader, please?
Okay. Michael P., you're self-muted. Can you read that for us, please? Thank you.
Sure. It is useless to attempt to explain the mystery in full. Materialists and the men of modern science will never understand it, since in order to obtain clear perception of it, one has first of all to admit the postulate of a universally diffused, omnipresent, eternal deity in nature. Secondly, to have fathomed the mystery of electricity in its true essence, and thirdly, to credit man with being the septenary symbol on the terrestrial plane of the one great unit, the Logos, which is itself the seven-voweled sign, the breath crystallized in the word, with an asterisk. He who believes in all this has also to believe in the multiple combination of the 7 planets of occultism and of the Kabbalah, with the 12 zodiac signs, to attribute, as we do, to each planet and to each constellation an influence, which, in the words of Eli Starr, a French occultist, is proper to it, beneficent and maleficent, and this after the planetary spirit which rules it, who in his turn is capable of influencing men and things which are found in harmony with him and with which he has an affinity. For these reasons, and since few believe in the foregoing, all that can now be given is that in both cases the symbol of Hansa, whether I, he, goose, or swan, is an important symbol representing, for instance, divine wisdom, wisdom in darkness, beyond the reach of men. For all exoteric purposes, Hansa, as every Hindu knows, is a fabulous bird, which, when given milk mixed with water for its food, in the allegory, separated the two, drinking the milk and leaving the water, thus showing inherent wisdom, milk standing symbolically for spirit and water for matter.
Thank you. Any thoughts or questions about this paragraph? HPB starts with an almost conversational description of the requisites for being an occultist before returning to the Hamsa towards the end. The reference to milk and water brings to mind the primordial churning of the sea of milk that we covered some webinars ago. Here's Brahma and his Hamsa Vahana. Brahma is Kalahamsa, while Purusha, the emanation from Brahma as one of its aspects as a creator power, is the Hansa Vahana, or swan carrier. So let's take a look at the footnote that references the phrase, the breath crystallized into the word. Can we get a reader for this?
Lynn, can you read that, please?
This is again similar to the doctrine of Fichte and German pantheists. The former reveres Jesus as the great teacher who inculcated the unity of the spirit of man with the God spirit, the Advaita doctrine, or universal principle. It is difficult to find a single speculation in Western metaphysics which has not been anticipated by archaic Eastern philosophy. From Kant to Herbert Spencer, it is all more or less distorted echo of the Dvaita, Advaita, and Vedantic doctrines generally.
Thanks, Lynn. So a bit of synchronicity between webinar series here. Those of you who participate in the Secret Teachings webinars will recognize this observation concerning the true origins of Western metaphysics. We've also very recently covered these philosophers, Kant, Herbert Spencer, and others, and Fichte, which he mentioned before. So can we get a reader for this quote? I think it was in the very last webinar on the Secret Teachings.
Carrie, can you read that? You're self-muted now. There you go. Thank you.
Although the Hellenes and Europeans proved themselves peculiarly responsive to the disciplines of philosophy, this science of sciences should not be considered indigenous to them. Although some of the Grecians, writes Thomas Stanley, have challenged to their nation the original of philosophy, yet the more learned of them have acknowledged it to be derived from the East. The magnificent institutions of Hindu, Chaldean, and Egyptian learning must be recognized as the actual source of Greek wisdom.
Thank you, Carrie. Okay, next up. Can we get a reader for this paragraph?
Scott, oh, nope. There you
There
go.
you go. That this allegory is very ancient and dates from the very earliest archaic period is shown by the mention in Bhagavata Purana of a certain caste named Hamsa or Hansa, which was the one caste par excellence. When far back in the midst of a forgotten past, there was among the Hindus only one Veda, one deity, one caste. There is also a range in the Himalayas, described in the old books as being situated north of Mount Meru, called Hamsa, and connected with episodes pertaining to the history of religious mysteries and initiations. As to the name of Kala Hansa being the supposed vehicle of Brahma Prajapati, in the exoteric texts and translations of the Orientalists, it is quite a mistake. Brahma, the neuter, is called by them Kala Hansa, and Brahma, the male, Kala Hamsa Vahana, because forsooth, quote, his vehicle or Vahan is a swan or goose, unquote. See the Hindu Classical Dictionary. This is a purely exoteric gloss. Esoterically and logically, if Brahma, the infinite, is all that is described by the Orientalists, namely agreeable with the Vedantic texts, an abstract deity in no way characterized by the description of any human attributes, and it is still maintained that he, or it, is called Kalahansa, then how can it ever become the Vahan of Brahma, the manifested finite God? It is quite the reverse. The swan or goose, Hansa, is a symbol of that male or temporary deity, as he, the emanation of the primordial ray, is made to serve as a Vahan or vehicle for that divine ray, which otherwise could not manifest itself in the universe, being antiphysatically itself an emanation of darkness, for our human intellect at any rate. It is Brahma, then, who is Kalahansa, and the ray, the Hansa Vahan.
Well, the good news is I bet there's not too many more instances of antiphrastically in the SD. But
we can hope so.
So any thoughts or questions about this paragraph? So this paragraph contains the quote that is part of the definition of Kalahansa that we just read in the Theosophical Glossary. But, never hurts to reread this material. The last sentence sums up HPB's argument. It is Brahma, then, who is Kalahansa, and the ray, the Hansa Vahana. If you're confused, there's the one to hold on to, right? Any final questions on this? Anything in this? Okay, up next, reader, please, for this paragraph.
Anna, can you read that for us, please? Anna, we can't hear you, so. Antonella, can you read that? You're self-muted. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. As to the strange symbol chosen, it is equally suggestive. The true mystic significance being the idea of a universal matrix figured by the primordial waters of the deep, or the opening for the reception, and subsequently for the issue of that one ray, the Logos, which contains in itself the other 7 procreative rays or powers, the Logoi or builders. Hence, the choice by the Rose-Croix of the aquatic fowl, whether swan or pelican, with 7 young ones for a symbol, modified and adapted to the religion of every country. And Soph is called the fiery soul of the pelican in the Book of Numbers. See part 2. The hidden deity and its symbols and glyphs. Appearing with every Manvantara as Narayan or Svayambhuva, the self-existent, and penetrating into the mundane egg, it emerges from it at the end of the divine incubation as Brahma or Prajapati, a progenitor of the future universe into which he expands. He is Purusha, spirit, but he is also Prakriti, matter. Therefore, it is only after separating himself into 2 halves, Brahma Vah, the female, and Brahma Viraji, the male, that the Prajapati becomes the male Brahma or Brahma.
Thank you, Antonella. Thoughts or questions on this paragraph? Anyone? Here, using the metaphor of the aquatic fowl, HPB pretty much summarizes stanza 3 up to this point. She cites Narayan, also called Svayambhuva, the self-existent, breathing over chaos, penetrating the mundane egg, described here in the 3rd verse, then emerging as a divine creator, the 3rd Logos, Brahma, Prajapati, or as verse 7 has it, Oya Ohu the younger, who is both spirit and matter, Purusha and Prakriti, the body of fire and water. But then HPB takes it a step further. It is only after separating himself into 2 halves, Brahma Vash and Brahma Viraj, the male, female and male, that the Prajapati becomes the male Brahma. So Oya Ohu, the younger, is Brahma Viraj, the seed or spirit essence of the Manvantara, who inhabits all form, which is Brahma Vash. Vash, by the way, means, references the word or that which goes forth, as well as it's in, I think it's in French, it's cow, isn't it? So there's also a reference to the source of milk, right, or sustenance, which would, you can see the relationship there with the idea of the word. The symbol for this is the circle, whose quote, central point is everywhere and whose circumference is nowhere. Finally, we have a reference to the fact that the quote, one ray, the Logos, contains in itself the other 7 procreative rays or powers, the Logi or builders, which is illustrated by, quote, the aquatic fowl, whether swan or pelican, with 7 young ones for a symbol. Here's a painting describing the 18th Scottish Rite degree of the Rose-Croix. The written description is by Albert Pike, arguably the most learned Mason ever to live, author of Morals and Dogma, a book whose title belies its rich content. Scott, could you read this for us, please? I chose Scott because he's a master Mason.
The rose was anciently sacred to Aurora and the sun. It is the symbol of dawn, of the resurrection of light and the renewal of life, and therefore of the dawn of the first day, and more particularly of the resurrection. And the cross and rose together are therefore hieroglyphically to be read, the dawn of eternal life, which all nations have hoped for by the advent of a Redeemer. The pelican feeding her young is an emblem of the large and beautiful, bountiful beneficence of nature, of the Redeemer of fallen man, and that of humanity and charity that ought to distinguish a knight of this degree.
Thank you. Okay. To this description might be added, given the cosmological context of our study, that the pelican represents the seed logos, by whatever name, from which all sustenance flows. And the 7 goslings represent the 7 ray lords who feed on the heart's blood, representing the first ray sacrifice, as well as second ray love wisdom of the logos. Any thoughts or questions about this image or a commentary on this? It's a beautiful image. The cross itself also is indicative of this first and second rate qualities, the vertical realm of spirit and horizontal realm of service. Okay, let's look at the footnote, which references the aquatic fowl, whether swan or pelican. Could we get a reader for footnote, please?
Martha G., can you read that for us, please?
I see whether the genus of the bird, that part?
That part, yeah.
Yes. Whether the genus of the bird be Cygnus, Uncer, or Pelicanus, it is no matter, as it is an aquatic bird floating or moving on the waters like the spirit, and then issuing from those waters to give birth to other beings. The true significance of the symbol of the 18th degree of the Rose-Croix is precisely this, though poetized later on into the motherly feeling of the pelican rendering its bosom to feed its 7 little ones with its blood.
Right, you always have the eso and exoteric, John. You can get caught by the imagery into creating all sorts of storylines, right? But any thoughts or questions about this footnote? Okay, now the second footnote, which references fiery soul of the pelican in the book of Numbers. Can we get a reader, please?
Michael S., can you do that? You're self-muted. Well, there you go.
The reason why Moses forbids eating the pelican and swan, classing the two among the unclean fowls, and permits eating bald locusts, beetles, and the grasshopper after his kind, from Leviticus 11 and Deuteronomy 14, is a purely physiological one and has to do with mystic symbology only insofar as the word unclean, like every other word, ought not to be read and understood literally, as it is esoteric like all the rest, and may as well mean holy as not. It is a blind, very suggestive in connection with certain superstitions, e.g., that of the Russian people who will not use the pigeon for food, not because it is unclean, but because the Holy Ghost is credited with having appeared under the form of a dove.
Thank you, Michael. Well, I wonder if bald locust is supposed to be understood literally. I think I'll pass. Any thoughts or questions on this footnote? This perfectly describes the usefulness of a blind. For average humanity, for whom the blind is intended, the term unclean has the desired deterrent effect. The idea that these foods are actually too holy for consumption throws a new light on other, quote, unclean foods like pork in the Jewish religion and all meat among some vegetarians. Okay, now that we've considered HPB's commentary on verse 8, let's take a closer look at the verse itself, which very much references verse 7. Verse 7 is really the heart of this stanza, in my opinion. And this very much references. So, where was the germ? And where was now darkness? Where is the spirit of the flame that burns in thy lamp, O Lanu? The germ is that, and that is light, the white, brilliant sun of the dark, hidden Father. Actually, HPB's commentary pretty much addresses the first two questions, where was the germ and where was now darkness, calling it a transcendentally metaphysical problem and one of the most essential truths of occult philosophy. But HPB doesn't actually answer either question, nor can they be answered by any sentient being. We have only the words of the ageless wisdom, which tell us that as the evolutionary cycle progresses, darkness and the germ disappear into the form aspect, the quote, body of fire and water. However, this disappearance does not mean a disappearance of existence. You know, that's not the right word, of beingness or of influence. For the germ stands ever at the center of all units of consciousness. Any thoughts or questions about this? The rest of the verse poses a question and answer. Where is the spirit of the lamp that burns in thy lamp, O Lanu? The germ is that, and that is light, the white brilliant sun of the dark hidden Father. In this question, we have the first reference to the stanzas thus far to the constitution of a mere human being, a Lanu, or seeker on the path of becoming. I find the phrase, the spirit of the flame that burns at thy lamp, O Lanu, to be particularly beautiful and an ingenious metaphor, for it represents 4 levels of being. Within the Lanu is the lamp of his what? Aspiration, consciousness, level of attainment, soul awareness, perhaps all 4 of these. Within that lamp is a flame, again, of what? Monadic presence. And finally, within that flame is spirit, unknowable, all-pervading, and the subject of the true question, where is the germ, where is the darkness, and where is the spirit? Of course, the sequence of the questions suggests that the unknowable answer to the first 2 is also the answer to the third. The germ is that, and that is light, the white, brilliant sun of the dark hidden Father. The that refers to both spirit from the previous question and to a particular use of the word that in Sanskrit, tad, which refers to the ineffable one, as shown here in the center of the circle. The final phrase, the white, brilliant sun of the dark hidden Father, ties it all together. Actually, I'm still back here. The spirit of the flame in the Lanu's lamp is Oya Ohu the Younger. So important to realize, right? The light of the world, the white, brilliant sun of the darkness that breathes over the slumbering waters of life. So any questions about this end of verse 8? So it's, I think, a very poetical verse. And kind of a sleeper. When you get into it, you realize how much is here. I almost hate to leave it behind, but onward to verse 9. Light is cold flame, and flame is fire, and fire produces heat, which yields water. Water of life in the Great Mother. So let's look at the commentary. Can we get a reader, please?
Catherine, can you read that for us, please? You're self-muted. Well, I'm not hearing her, so let's go to Diana. Can you read that for us, please?
Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
It must be remembered that the words light, fire, and flame used in the stanzas have been adopted by the translators thereof from the vocabulary of the old fire philosophers, in order to render better the meaning of the archaic terms and symbols employed in the original. Otherwise, they would have remained entirely unintelligible to a European reader. But to a student of the occult, the terms used will be sufficiently clear.
Thank you. Stanzas and even Sanskrit must certainly have particular and finely delineated names for the many levels of this, quote, mystic and divine element, which have been reduced in English to the inadequate terms of light, fire, and flame. That's because we don't use English to describe these states, these conditions of being and of consciousness, right? We use them for basically exoteric. But I'm sure that even Sanskrit probably has, it's kind of like, you know, the myth that the Eskimos have 18 words for snow, right? Certainly Sanskrit, and without question, Stanzas would have very finely delineated terms to describe these ideas related to light, fire, flame, and electricity. So let's take a look at the footnote, which references the term fire philosophers. I'll read this, this is short.
Okay, Francis.
Yeah.
Ishtar has a quick question.
Yeah.
The younger is our logos, and central spiritual son, the Father.
The younger is the central spiritual son. The Father would be that being which is that breathed Narayana, which breathed over the waters of space, and from the lotus emerged bright space, which would be Oyaho the younger. And I would, and this is just my, is what I've determined, that it would be the causal levels that are the cosmic mental plane, the cosmic central spiritual sun, right? But you could also look at it as any causality, but it has to be a singularity. Any causality higher than that, you know, for instance, our logos on, you know, on monadic levels, that would be cosmic monadic, but it would have to be a singularity in order to be qualified to be the Oyao, who the younger. Does that answer your question? I hope so.
Here, let me unmute her and then. Okay, you're self-muted if you have any more to the question, Ishtar. Okay, I guess she's not.
Okay, so let me read this.
I guess you answered it.
Yeah, I guess I answered it. Okay. This footnote. Not the medieval alchemists, but the magi and fire worshippers from whom the Rosicrucians or the philosophers per Ennium, the successors of the Theurgists, borrowed all their ideas concerning fire as a mystic and divine element. Per Ennium just means through fire. The Theosophical Glossary tells us that these fire philosophers were a particular group of Persian magi who regarded fire as a symbol of deity and worked magically with these different substances, which are described as light, flame, and fire. Okay, next up. Can we get a reader for this, please? Yeah.
Yeah, Antoinette, we can't hear you, so. All right, let's go back to Carrie. You're self-muted, Carrie. Can you read that? And we have
all these, light, flame, hot, cold, fire, heat, water, and the water of life are all on our plane, the progeny, or as a modern physicist would say, the correlations of electricity. Mighty word, and a still mightier symbol. Sacred generator of a no less sacred progeny of fire, the creator, the preserver, and the destroyer, of light, the essence of our divine ancestors, of flame, the soul of things, electricity, the one life at the upper rung of being, and astral fluid, the athanor of the alchemists at its lowest, God and devil, good and evil.
Thanks, Carrie. Any ideas about this? About these concepts? Light, flame, hot, cold, fire, heat, water, and water of life. HPB here puts electricity at the very top of the hierarchy of what we might call living force. The one life at the upper rung of being, calling fire, light, and flame its progeny. Before going on with the commentary, I think it would be useful to take an extended look at the relationship between electricity, which is fohat, light, fire, and flame, beginning with an excerpt from the Theosophical Glossary on electricity. Can we get a reader for this, please?
Karen, can you read that for us, please?
Electricity. Theosophy regards electricity not as a mere effect, but as an entity or cosmic force named Fohat, also spoken of distributively as the sons of Fohat. Electricity is also mentioned as a form of cosmic vitality, emanating chiefly from the various suns in the universe, but also in a lesser degree from all other cosmic entities. And behind all such vital activities is the all-permanent cosmic intelligence unfolding itself into the vital web of the mere cosmic intelligence, of the minor cosmic intelligences. Electricity on our planet, on our Earth planet, is one of the lowest forms of spirit light, or divaprakriti. From the standpoint of occultism, no cosmic force or manifestations of any cosmic force is different from cosmic life itself. And furthermore, no smallest particle or point of definite space is lifeless, so that the grossest matter is to be looked upon as a dense composite of vital activity. From these two postulates, it follows that electricity is not only vitality, but vitality controlled by intelligence. Thus, electricity is all permanent and virtually infinite in its manifestations.
Thank you, Karen. So that term is permeant, which, as opposed to permanent, which
Permeant, yes.
Permeant, which means, you know, it permeates all.
Right.
So the entity Fohat, the firstborn son, described as, quote, no different from cosmic life itself, is an all permeant cosmic intelligence that unfolds itself into and through the vital web of the minor cosmic intelligences by means of its progeny, the Fohatic 7 brothers. Okay, let's dive a little bit deeper. DK significantly expands on HPB's teachings in Initiation, Human and Solar, and even more so in a treatise on cosmic fire. So let's start by taking a look at how electricity manifests on each of the highest 4 subplanes of the cosmic physical plane. You can actually look at these 4 descriptions as the nature of these 4 brothers of Fohat, right? So let's divide this up. Actually, why don't we, should we do this? Yeah, let's have a reader for the first 3 paragraphs, which ends in burning electrical manifestation. Let's just start there.
Okay, Michael, Stacy, thank you.
We are now to touch upon the profoundest mystery of the whole manifested solar system, the mystery spoken of by HPB as the mystery of electricity. It is intimately connected with the life of God, as demonstrated through his 7 centers, the 7 heavenly men, the divine Manasaputras. Electricity on the first plane, the logoic or divine, demonstrates as the will to be, the primary aspect of that force which eventually results in objectivity. Cosmically considered, it is that initial impulse or vibration which emanates from the logoic causal body on the cosmic mental plane and makes contact with the first cosmic etheric, or the solar plane of Adi. Electricity on the monadic plane demonstrates as the first manifestation of form, as that which causes forms to cohere. Matter, electrified by fire by friction, and the electric fire of spirit meet and blend, and form appears. Form is the result of the desire for existence, hence the dynamic fire of will is transmuted into the burning fire of desire. I would call attention to the choice of these 2 phrases, which might also be expressed under the terms dynamic electrical manifestation and burning electrical manifestation.
Thank you, Michael. So any thoughts or questions on what we've covered so far? When we keep in mind the fact that the stanzas of Dzyan describe the reformation of our solar system, DK's statement, cosmically considered, it is that initial impulse or vibration which emanates from the logoic causal body on the cosmic mental plane and makes contact with the first cosmic ether or the solar plane of Adi. The statement is a much more specific description of HPB's comment, electricity is a sacred generator of a no less sacred progeny. To better understand this progeny, we only have to look at how electricity manifests on the 3 subsequent subplanes. First, the initial impulse or vibration of the Adi plane becomes, on the monadic plane, that which causes forms to cohere. Said another way, the second Phohatic brother's quality is to blend and cohere matter and electric fire. And that this coherence is a function of desire, or, quote, burning electrical manifestation. It's interesting to note that the form that electricity takes hasn't changed. It's still the electric fire of spirit, but when it comes into contact with matter, the, quote, fire of will is transmuted into the burning fire of desire, which becomes a burning electrical manifestation. Okay, so could we get a reader for the next, actually for the rest? Yeah.
All right, Michael P., can you do that? You're self-muted. Thank you.
On this third plane, excuse me, on this third plane, that intelligent principle demonstrates as coherent activity, either systemic, planetary, or monadic, and also as the triple vibration of spirit, matter, intelligence, sounding as a threefold sacred word or electricity manifesting a sound. We have here an interesting sequence of inversion, according to the angle of vision involving the planes as we know them. Electricity as the vibratory impulse. This causes the aggregation of matter and its activity within certain bounds, or its awakening to activity within the solar ring past naught. This is the first symbol of the sacred word. Electricity as light, causing spheroidal objectivity. This is the birth of the sun. It covers the enunciation of the second syllable of the sacred word. Electricity as sound. Here we have the completed threefold sacred word. On the fourth plane, this electrical force shows itself as color. In these four, we have the fundamental concepts of all manifestation. All four have an electrical dynamic origin. All are basically a differentiation or effect of impulse, emanating from the cosmic mental plane and taking form with intelligent purpose in view on the cosmic physical. It might here be asked why color primarily is spoken of as the Buddhic manifestation of electricity. We are employing the word color here in its original and basic sense as that which veils. Color veils the sevenfold differentiation of egoic manifestation, and from the angle of vision of man in the three worlds can be seen only in its full significance on the Buddhic plane. All fire and electrical display will be seen to embody the seven colors.
Thank you, Michael. So back up to the third subplane, the plane of intelligent activity. Electricity manifests as a triple sacred word. The first syllable, let's see, let me get here. Here we go. Yeah. The first syllable reiterates the will to be of the Adi plane, the initial impulse or vibration, just like up on the first plane. The second syllable of the sacred word brings forth the monadic quality of coherence, resulting in light and spheroidal objectivity. So we get an example of the relationship between electricity and light in this second syllable of the sacred word. The third syllable sounds forth the quality of the third subplane itself, that of electricity as sound. Thus, the sacred word proclaims or sounds forth the three in one. No wonder Jericho's walls came tumbling down. On the fourth subplane, this electrical force shows itself as color. Color here meaning that which veils. No surprise, as the fourth universally veils the primordial three. To conclude, DK gives us the statement: In these four, we have the fundamental concepts of all manifestation. All four have an electrical dynamic origin. All are basically a differentiation or effect of impulse emanating from the cosmic mental plane and taking form with intelligent purpose in view on the cosmic physical. So we have a phohatic vibratory impulse emanating from the cosmic mental plane, where the causal body of the solar logos is to be found, which then, quote, makes contact with the first cosmic etheric, or the solar plane of Adi. After which, it creates and conditions the form aspect with intelligent purpose on the four cosmic ethers of the physical plane. This is sort of the advent of Phohat. Extraordinary that we have this material available to us. It's just incredible. So any thoughts or questions about this? All form is created and conditioned by electricity, which is Phohat. Going back to the commentary, we now see how electricity demonstrates as light. Let me finish the sentence, and then, which HPB tells us was the essence of our divine ancestors, and which DK tells us is the fundamental quality of the son of mind, the soul. Yes, BL.
Scott and Michael S. have their hands up. So let's go with Scott first and then Michael. Go ahead, Scott. Scott? Okay,
Sorry.
Let's go with Michael first.
Okay. He's describing three symbols of the sacred word, and in the evolutionary process, the sacred word has two symbols, the OM. And so I'm understanding the three syllables of the sacred word, or three letters, AUM. And in that sense, it is involutionary, whereas the two letters of the sacred word, the OM, is evolutionary. Is that your understanding?
Actually, I think that both of them work both ways. But the idea that when the disciple becomes soul infused, one with the soul, that he moves from a triple reality, which is expressed by the AUM, the M being the material aspect, he moves from that to a dual reality, which is monadic and the now assumed soul consciousness. And that's the OM, as I understand it. So, you could see them both. However, the AUM, and DK does tell us, drives consciousness, or drives the word into form. So in that sense, it's specific. Involutionary. That's how I understand it.
Okay. And if we go back, well, if we're looking here, was it talking about descending into the cosmic physical planes, the etheric, the four etheric subplanes of the cosmic physical plane? We go back to your diagram where it bypasses those four.
We don't know really that it bypasses them. That's what he tells us in the very beginning of this section. Let me go back here. You could see cosmically considered, it is that initial impulse or vibration which emanates from the logoic causal body on the cosmic mental plane and makes contact with the first cosmic etheric or solar plane of Adi. Now, I have no doubt that you could put a ... between there and that there are volumes to be written, but that they don't apply to human consciousness. As to what happens on Fohat's journey from the cosmic mental to that Adi plane.
Yeah, from our perspective, we're not seeing form on those cosmic etheric levels, but form does exist.
Yeah, well, cosmic etheric meaning cosmic, you mean the cosmic physical plane, the etheric levels of the cosmic physical plane. That's
yes, yes.
Yeah. Well, by the very nature of the term cosmic physical plane, yes, form exists in its most tenuous aspect. However, we're specifically told that on the monadic plane is the first manifestation of form. Right, if you read that line, electricity on the monadic plane demonstrates as the first manifestation of form. So, as we know it, right? So you could say the seed is of this reality exists in the sea of fire on the Adi plane, but is not manifest, right? As is always the case in the Adi plane or Adi subplanes, right?
It all comes down to perspective, doesn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
And since we're trying to graduate out of nursery school, we have a very limited perspective.
This is, yeah. I'm always. This always brings me to DK, answering a disciple when he said when the disciple was describing the wonder of experiencing the consciousness of DK, and he says, just imagine how I feel when I countenance those higher consciousness that come available to me for my growth. Talk about humbling. So it's
right.
We're going to need to pull the plug here.
Well, let's see if we can get Scott.
Okay, you're the one that's the timekeeper on this because I know you had something you needed to do. So
right.
Scott,
as I do. I'm sorry, I muted myself. My question was like Michael's. I was thinking on your diagram that he was taking it into the cosmic physical plane and dealing with the top 4 ethers that you blanked out there. And I think that's where he is. The cosmic physical 1, 2, 3, and 4, and not the 7th.
Yeah. What do you mean? Well, the 7th isn't indicated.
No. Yeah, but the one, the egoic, monadic, spiritual, atmic, and intuitional, those 4 cosmic, and on the cosmic physical plane, I thought was where he was pitching all of this.
Yeah, it is.
And not down to the 7th subplane of the cosmic physical, but to the first, second, third, and fourth.
They're grayed out though.
And that's what I'm saying. I don't think they should be grayed out. I think that's where he's pitching it, and not down to the physical.
I don't understand your question. What he's doing here is saying that it manifests, that it descends from the cosmic mental to the Adi subplane of the cosmic physical plane, which is
right, which is the one, the sea of fire at the top.
That's there, right? And then this commentary that we're reading describes each further demonstration in the cosmic physical, not the cosmic monadic and the cosmic logoic and cosmic.
I agree.
Okay, so therefore that's demonstrated by those 4 subplanes
of the cosmic physical, not the subplanes of the 7th subplane of the cosmic physical.
Right. This is the first. What's demonstrated in that lower part with that little arrow is the top 4 subplanes, the etheric subplanes of the cosmic physical. What's grayed out are the 3 below that. We better have a phone conversation afterwards.
We do need to do that because we're not meeting on the same level here on this one, but that's all right.
Right. Well, we're probably meeting on the cosmic physical, which is, I mean,
of course.
Okay, thanks, Scott. Yeah, so we're here, and yeah, so that we'll draw the line right there. Okay, announcements. First of all, I haven't mentioned this before, but if you're enjoying this webinar series, go to Moria Federation and push the donate button and put something in there. You know, even if it's just a few dollars. I get nothing for this, but I would love to see the Moria Federation, which always struggles, by the way, on financial levels to meet its needs. So, you know, throw in a few dollars. And let's see, other announcements were, BL, can you remind me?
Yes, the next STOA is going to be 5 January.
Okay, January 5th.
And
STOA
the next
Secret Teachings of All Ages by Manly Hall. That's okay.
The next Secret Doctrine is going to be January 19th.
Okay.
And then I'm proud to say that Eva Smith and I are starting a new Esoteric Astrology and the Pairs of Opposites webinar. The first one is 11 January. And if you want information on it, we haven't sent the announcement out yet, but there is an announcement on morefederation.com. So if you are interested in that, we were waiting for the start of the school year because we wanted to make sure we got all the new students, but it's open to other people besides just students. So that's what I've got.
Anyone here can sign up for that. Yeah, if astrology totally mystifies you, then I recommend that you jump into this course because they start on the ground floor and work up from there, give you a good basis for understanding astrology. Okay, well, that's it for this year. I will add an announcement, which is that December 21st is the first day of the Festival of the New Group of World Servers, which only occurs every 7 years. I think there's going to be webinar events around this, probably even some local events in your area. We're doing one here. So jump into that festival event. It only occurs every 7 years. Very important event, especially this will be the last one before 2025. It'll be the last one in these years of the Forerunner. So turn your attention to that week from the 21st through the 28th, first week of Capricorn. And it begins at the solstice, of course, and the school year of the Moria Federation. So that's it for me. It's always a pleasure to host these, and I hope that it is working for you as well. I'm always open to any kind of feedback you have. Thanks for joining us today. So, ta-ta for now.
Goodbye, everybody.